What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful night. Beautiful night. Perfect temperature. Just really comfortable out here, and I'm having some Earl Grey tea. Earl Grey, perfect for the atmosphere. Delicious. So I have a Rubicon Jeep. Look at that. So cool. Look at that. The back opens up. Got the hood here. Get that. So I've always been a big fan of Jeep, especially this kind right here, the one that actually looks like a Jeep from the old days, World War II type Jeeps. I always thought, when I was younger, that at some point I would have one of these, but manual transmission, stick shift, not the automatic. And I watch these YouTube channels where they have these Jeeps where they're all souped up, the tires are really thick, and they're in these canyons with these weird rock formations, and the Jeeps are climbing over them like caterpillars. And I just liked everything about it. I remember in the old days, the Jeeps, they didn't have 4 doors, they were 2-door Jeeps, and the top was not a hard top. I mean, they had them, they had hard top Jeeps, but a lot of people had those canvas or vinyl tops. Oh, there it goes, taking off. And I always thought, I'd get one of these Jeeps and take it into these weird places, bumpy roads, steep climbs, 10% grade, maybe even 11. But so far, I've never owned a Jeep, and I've never driven a Jeep either. I can't think of I've never driven a Jeep. My uncle had a Jeep back in the 70s, and that was manual transmission, had the vinyl top, the one that you can take off and fold up. And I remember we'd go fishing, and this is the time where nobody cared about safety, and I remember we'd go fishing, and then after that my uncle would be on the highway heading back, and I could see my cousins in the back there, their legs sticking out from the back of the Jeep as the Jeep was going 70 miles an hour down the highway. But yeah, I remember when the Hummers came out, and I'm a fan of the full-size Hummer. Now, every once in a while I'll be driving around somewhere and I will see a full-size Hummer from the old days, and I will say to myself in my mind, man, that thing is huge. It's, nowadays they look big on their own. I mean, they look not big, but good size. But when you see an old one from like 1987, those things are they're wide. They're wide. You can put a stereo in there, from the old days. But yeah, I like the Rubicon Jeep Wrangler. You know, they're so, convenient. They're like little muscle cars. Not muscle cars like the old days where they were just meant for speed, but these are very versatile. They can go anywhere. Good for camping. So I had my mother out today, sitting out in the back here, looking at the night sky. And she's not too familiar with the universe. Doesn't, I don't know, probably thinks the earth, the moon, the sun, and the other things are just floating, lights. Probably doesn't know the extent of the universe and how big it is. So she's looking at the sky, and Jupiter was rising. And she's looking at it, and she says to me, is that a pole there with a light on it? And I'm looking, I go, where? And she points, and I go, that little thing, I go, that looks like a star? She goes, yeah, that. I go, no, that's a planet. She's like, a planet? I go, yeah, that's a planet. And she goes, that big? I go, yeah, that big. So she thought about it for a few moments, and she goes, I think it's a pole with a light on it. She goes, that's what I go, no, it's not. I go, watch in like 10 minutes how it's going to change positions. And it did. Now it's way up there, where before it was way down there. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are next generation up from me that have absolutely no idea about anything that they've discovered about the universe in the past 70 years. No idea. To them, the reality we live in is nothing more than the earth, the moon, the sun, and we're in a dome. They think that the top part here is a dome, and we're inside being watched by the supernatural. It's like listening to people from the Bronze Age. That's what it feels like. People from the Bronze Age living today, they think that the universe is like the way they thought it was back in the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age and the beliefs they had in the Bronze Age on other issues as well. But yeah, sometimes I look at human beings, and even though I'm part of the group, I think, it's just, I look at it like I'm a visitor looking at the strangeness. Like, look at all these things walking around. And here we are in this monster universe. Here we are. I find it weird. It's weird. It's like, up until a few years ago, they were saying the universe is like 3.8 billion years old. I mean, 13.8 billion years old. And then we put more and more and more advanced technology in space, and it was able to look further and further away, further back in time. And and now, a lot of top scientists, they think that the universe we can see, the observable, is not all there is. And why would it be? I mean, that's ridiculous to think just because we've developed a telescope that can see, what is it, like 43 billion light years all the way around. So we got 43 billion that way, 43 billion that way, that way, that way, that way. And so you have like 90, let's say 100 billion light years from here to here. Well, now with all this new stuff up there, Webb, it looks like that is probably like a drop in the bucket. The universe is probably many, 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 many more times bigger than what we can observe, which at that point puts into question the Big Bang. At least the age of it. I mean, if something is this big and we're here, and then you can reverse engineer how fast it's expanding, and then say, okay, 13.8 billion years ago it was like compacted into this area, then that makes sense. But if the universe is trillions of times bigger than this area, then you can't say there was a Big Bang. How would you figure that out? I mean, how would you know that there was a Big Bang if the universe is many, many times bigger than the point we think it's at right now? So I don't know, that Big Bang theory, kind of iffy right now. The universe may have always existed, never had a beginning, and just because it's expanding doesn't mean it had to have a beginning. I mean, expanding into what, and expanding, like, what size is it now? Some people say infinite. Some people say it's finite. I have an issue with infinity, but I also have an issue of the expansion part. What's it expanding into? What's the universe held inside of? Because no matter how how big the universe is in miles, like whatever number you come up with, you could say it's 99 septillion years old, or you could say it's 999 dectillion light years across. Okay, fine, it's that big. Then what's after that? What is it expanding into? And if it's just empty space that it's going into, then where did the empty space come from? And how big is the empty space? And what is the empty space held inside of? And that question goes on forever and ever and ever. No matter what you find to answer the question of what is this held inside of and what's that held inside of, you can keep going on forever like that. Got the universe, it's held inside of this thing is held inside of this thing. It's almost like the reality we live in should never have existed in the first place, because it's ridiculous. When I was a kid, that was a question that always tied my mind up into a knot. I would always think about that. What is the universe inside of? And don't ask a scientist that question, because they don't know. They give you this nonsensical, well, it's not inside of anything, it's creating whatever it's inside of as it expands. You don't even know that to be true. You're just making that up. You don't know anything, so just say, I don't know. Watch these videos and they try and explain the concept of what is the universe expanding into, or what is it held inside of, and they give you nothing more than Boulder Dash. Just say you don't know, that's it. But for me, no matter what, let's say this is the universe. When we see here, there's more and more, and then you go further and further, and then you get outside of the planet, and then you get outside of the solar system. LAPD. I used to think I pictured the universe at the edge would be up against something, something solid. Like we're inside a dome or something, and the universe is inside of this thick dome. Okay, let's say you had some kind of device that could dig through this dome. What would be after that? And after that, and after that? No matter how big it is, there's got to be something after that, and after that. And then I remember thinking, a lot of times I would think, what about if there was nothing anywhere? Not even empty space, just nothingness. And nothingness is weirder than something, because you can't really define nothingness. Emptiness, okay, fine, but even that, where did that come from? Where did the emptiness come from if there was nothing? I'm of the mind that the universe always existed in some form. And if there's a multiverse, then that's like bubbles in your bathtub with Mr. Bubble. While one is going dark, another one is forming somewhere else. And maybe, now I've heard, some scientists say, well, this has been debunked, but, they used to say, well, what about if black holes are nothing more than recycling centers? So eventually everything in the galaxy gets sucked into the black hole. The black hole squeezes it all together, and then somewhere on the other side, wherever that may be, there's a massive explosion. All the atoms, all the energy is there, and it creates a whole new beginning, a whole new universe. That would make sense, because this can't be the only time, right? Reality has had to have been around even before. I mean, why would it be just now that it started? It had to be around, like, you can't even come up with a number how old it is. It's probably infinite. And that is why, because we can't answer certain things right now, that is why we have all these mythological stories that people buy into about creation and, you know, the meaning and all of that. All that stuff does not impress me. Doesn't impress me. You know, I'd rather know what the truth is of how things came to be than be frustrated with not knowing, and then just make up stuff and feel, because it's been made up, that, oh yeah, that's the way it happened. That's not the way it happened. You know, just because somebody came up with a story doesn't mean that you, in the year 2023 and beyond, should buy into it as if it's fact. So, yeah, I'm just, you know, very fascinated with the size of the universe. And now with Webb up there, the Webb telescope, it looks more and more likely that the observable universe is probably a drop in the bucket, a drop in the ocean, a drop in the universe. You know, and then you have all the other, like here we are, you know, boom. I mean, if you weren't born into this place, you wouldn't even know it existed. How could you? You weren't anywhere. But for me, you know, a lot of these answers could get answered by an intelligent life form, a civilization that's out there somewhere in the universe that is billions of years ahead of us. They would have answers. I'm dying to, you know, hear one day, turn on the news and hear something like we've made contact. And once we make contact with one, we'll figure out that there's billions of life forms, like billions of intelligent life forms throughout the universe. I mean, we're just one galaxy out of, if you want to believe the number hundreds of billions, or if you want to believe the latest number 2 trillion, either way. And that's just the observable. But we're just one. And let's say hundreds of billions of galaxies. We're just one. I mean, even, like, let's say that we're the only life form, the only intelligent life form here in this galaxy, and each galaxy has at least one. That's an unbelievable amount of life forms out there, which you will never, ever, ever be able to contact because of the vast distances. But when I go somewhere and it's dark, without the lights of the city, and you look up into the sky, it's overwhelming how many stars exist just in our galaxy. Just in our galaxy. You know, like right now I'm looking up and you see a couple of stars, and you see a planet there, Jupiter. And I don't know if that's Mars. I don't think that's Mars, but right now, because the lights are on, the street lights, city lights, they're on, you look at the sky and it looks like nothing's out there. But if everything went dark right now, like if there was some kind of power outage, then you would notice that there's thousands and thousands of stars, and they all look like they're next to each other, but the average distance between one star and the other is about 5 light years. Doesn't sound like much until you think about it in terms of our technology. So our fastest technology that we have, 38,000 miles per hour, it would take about 75,000 years traveling 24/7 to get to the next star, Alpha Centauri, which is at 4.2 light years. That's it. 4.2 light years. 75,000. Some people say 100,000, but we're going to say 75,000 years of traveling 24/7 at 38,000 miles per hour. And it would take 75,000 years to get to the next star. You know, and then when you look at things from far away, it looks like it's cluttered, but it's so big that you have to go back like at nighttime in the desert. If you go, you can actually see Andromeda with the naked eye, and it looks like, you know, it looks like that big in the sky. But that Andromeda galaxy is bigger than our Milky Way galaxy, with billions of stars inside of that little, you know. I like these videos on YouTube that show you pulling away from Earth further and further out. You finally see the whole solar system. You keep going and going, and you see a bunch of other little solar systems, the local group that's around us. Keep going and going, you finally see our galaxy. Keep going and going, and then you see a few more galaxies show up. Then you see the local cluster of galaxies, and then you go a little further up, and then there's another cluster, and you take that all together, and it's like 550 million light years across, which is crazy to think about. You know, and that's just a little area of the universe, the observable universe. So, you know, it's fascinating, and then they tell you, you know, it's probably that the universe is trillions of times bigger than what we can see right now. It's just weird, you know. And to me, the reality that exists, this reality or any reality that, you know, is around the universe, is strange that it's even real, that it's even there. And then you start thinking like that, and you remove yourself from the reality that we, you know, day-to-day lives reality, then it's almost like you become insignificant. Which we are. In the great scheme of things, we are insignificant. You know, and then you think about how many other realities exist that have nothing to do with this world that we live in. And I don't mean the world like our Earth, I mean our universe. Maybe there's other types of realities that aren't even close to resembling our universe. They look totally different. There's no such thing as planets or suns. They're just different concepts. And the only way you could see those, because no matter how fast you can travel, even if you could travel like 1 trillion times the speed of light, you could never get to these places, because they don't exist in our connective reality. They exist somewhere that you can't get to unless you're born into that place, or somehow show up there from, you know, nothingness. But, you know, I wait, and every so often you get some kind of information, some kind of new image from the universe, some kind of new size readings of the universe. And I've always been interested in the reality we live in, the universe, the size, the amount of stuff in it now. You know, we know dark matter exists, dark energy, and who knows what else is out there. And it's crazy the amount of space in between these structures. I mean, realistically, if you think about it, the universe is empty. I mean, you can take all this stuff that you see, all the solid stuff, the trillions of galaxies, or the hundreds of billions of galaxies, and put it all in one little area, and the rest of the universe would be nothing but emptiness. And that would be overwhelmingly huge. Yeah, I would love, though, I would love to hear, you know, I turn on the news and they say, breaking news, life forms from another planet are visiting Earth, and, you know, they're sharing their secrets of the universe.